So now we're going to move to Expert Insights, Creative Ways to Hire and Retain Talent. I'd like to ask Brittany Jackson and Drew Noble to go ahead and join me on stage. I think they're both here. Hey. So we all know the hiring crisis the last couple years has really taken its toll on small businesses, large corporations alike, and I really wanted to talk about that today with a couple experts. So I wanted to turn the mic over to Brittany. So Brittany Jackson is Principal Consultant, HR Consultant with Building Stronger Teams. And Drew is the Senior HR Partner or something at Amazon here in Garner. So I will turn it over to both of them, and we've got some tough questions for them to talk about this hiring crisis and where the future kind of goes. So Brittany, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Matthew, for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this panel today. I am the founder of Building Stronger Teams, your partner in human resources. I'm based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Just a little bit about me. Prior to launching fully into human resources, I do have a background in staffing, where I did have the pleasure of working with both local and national staffing companies in the areas of construction, skilled trade, hospitality, clerical, and warehouse.
Awesome. Thanks for being here today. Drew.
Thank you, everybody, for having me today. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Drew Noble. I'm a Senior HR Business Partner at Amazon RDU1 right down the road. I've been with Amazon for about 3 years, and prior to that, I worked in manufacturing for International Paper. Worked through 3 different paper mills around the Southeast to kind of work my way up through HR. So International Paper, my manufacturing experience was all unionized experience, and all my experience with Amazon has been non-union. So it's been a nice transition to see different sides of the business world there. So also my background, I have a master's degree in human resource management from the University of Tennessee, and look forward to answering any questions you got.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate both of you being here. We wanted to have one kind of consultant that was on the panel and then somebody who hires a lot of people. So Drew, I'm going to start with you. So you guys have 3,500 or so regular employees and then up to 5,000 at Amazon?
Keep cranking it up. So different building types are very different. I can speak to RDU1 specifically. Right now we have just under 5,000 employees at the building and targeting to be just over 6,000 right before peak in November.
All right, so that's crazy. Have you ever seen anything like this hiring crisis before in your hiring?
So great question. So Amazon is a different animal, right? So Amazon has been in a high volume hiring mode for years, right? Prior to the pandemic and everything else. So Amazon was set up for success rolling into this because this was kind of the norm for us. So Amazon has an entire business group called Workforce Staffing, where their entire objective is to fill the roles in all the facilities across the country. But specifically for we have representatives for each building as well. So RDU1, we have a workforce staffing team that they have an office right up in front of the building. They take all sorts of applicants coming through there, and their entire job is ensuring that we have our roles filled. And I would say that we've been very successful through the past 2 years. I looked at some data this morning just to confirm for this year, and in 2022, RDU1, we've hired about 5,000 people at the building. And we have hiring targets every single week, and not 1 week through the course of entire 2022 have we missed on our hiring targets. So the crisis exists. It's out there. I'm not trying to downplay that. In our business model, we've been able to work through that, and I feel very proud of that.
Awesome. Well, that's still a lot of hiring. So Brittany, what have you seen anything like this crisis before?
Well, what I will say is just on a whole, there has always been some sort of challenging in hiring, especially when I speak to, my experience in staffing. There's always been issues with finding workers, or at least it's been said, people don't want to work. They don't want to work. I think, especially working through this pandemic, we're now able to see things that we can't unsee. And those are the issues that our employees face, the reason why they don't want to show up to work. So I would say there's always been some sense of challenge with hiring.
Yeah, well, so that gets into the next question, right? So that's what people are like, people just don't want to work, but it seems way more complicated than that, right? So, it's a lot of different things. Unemployment assistance, and people are unhappy with their working environments. I think a lot of that has come to the forefront, during this time. People preferring to work at home, feeling undervalued. So what are your thoughts on, what the fixes are for that just generally? Has it become more of a, employee-driven benefits, it's what the employee wants that a company needs to give? I mean, what are your thoughts on how that changes and what is going on?
Well, I will start off by saying, Drew, I don't think you'll ever have to worry about anything because my family buys a lot of Amazon, so
Right.
you're good there. But just being serious, employees want to be treated like human, okay? Just being candid, a lot of people show up to work and they feel like they are treated less than human. They feel like they are just a part of the rat race. They're not recognized, their voices are not valued. And so while compensation may seem like, a major driver, it's not just about the money. It's about the peace of mind. Can I show up to this organization? Can I be a part of this culture every day and not have to worry about my stress and my anxiety constantly going through the roof? Is there any work-life balance? So I think those are a lot of the factors as to why it is challenging to find people. You can offer like a great compensation plan, but at the end of the day, if they're stressed, if their management or leadership team treats them like garbage, if the compensation it's not in alignment with the work expectations, you're going to constantly go through that churn and burn. I see a lot of job descriptions on a daily basis, and I'm sure you have in your career as well, Drew. A lot of times, companies will promote positions to be one thing, and then when the person goes through that process, if there's even an onboarding process, and it's night and day. So being realistic about what that atmosphere is going to look like, what the expectations of that position is going to require. And then you'll, number one, attract better talent, those that are more in line with what you're looking for, but you also need to be able to back it up because it's not a one-way street. You need the employees just as much as they need somewhere that they can plug into.
Yeah, so as the largest employer in Garner, right? So how are you able to do that? If you've hit all your targets, what are you guys doing that's different?
Yeah, so good question, good point. So first off, I think you said things very well. So just to go back to the beginning of the question, I think there really has truly been a cultural shift, and if employers are not, on board with that, they're going to fall behind. The reality is that all those things that you mentioned, like people are telling us what they want. Like it's not a secret, right? So we got to go out there and try and latch onto those things, regardless of like what business or business group you're in. Like there's things that you can do to try and improve the attractiveness of your company. So whether it's improved compensation or improved benefits, flexible work arrangements, work environment, remote work, whatever, right? Like there's lots of options. It doesn't necessarily have to be all of them, or even just one. It could be a mix, right? But these are the things you really got to look at when you're talking about attracting and retaining your talent. So Amazon specifically, we follow that same suit. So when it comes to getting people in the door, that's probably more of a workforce staffing person's specialty. I probably can't get into as much detail there, but I can certainly get into more detail with on-site, right? So we get people in the door, but we really, a bigger challenge for us is our 0 to 45-day attrition. We track, basically how long we're keeping folks. And our onboarding process is critical to keeping folks and the training process. So two key components to keeping employees once you get them in the door. So Amazon has just recently revamped its onboarding process. Traditionally, it's been more of a, hey, welcome, here's a few policies, now get out there and go get some stuff done. And, you kind of get trained on the fly. And that doesn't set the right tone for what we, for a long-term relationship with an employee. You're more or less telling them like, hey, you're just, all we need you for is just get out there. Like that's all it is. And that's not the reality, and that's not what we want to portray. So we've changed our onboarding system to be much more in depth, like a multi-day process, which is more or less unheard of inside of Amazon because we're very focused on productivity. So that onboarding process has improved significantly, which has made a big impact, a measurable impact in our attrition because we track everything in Amazon. But also training. Training is really, really important. So you can do all the right things and get somebody out there into the job, go through their onboarding, but if they're not trained appropriately, very quickly they're going to be changing their mind about, is this the right place for them? Am I comfortable here? Like, no, I'm not comfortable. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So to impact that 0 to 45-day attrition, those two components have been super important to allowing us to meet these staffing targets.
Yeah, well, you're nodding your head a lot. I would like you want to add to this. I can tell.
Yes, and I love that because I think sometimes the larger an organization gets, the more that gets lost. And so I love to hear, working both from a local standpoint, but even also like on more of a larger level, that is very important. I think a lot of people miss that, and that's why I try to focus on working with smaller organizations to make sure that they have those right systems in place. You touched on onboarding and that training piece. Again, we always want to hire people with all of these qualifications, but that doesn't mean that they are equipped to do what your particular organization needs. You can always hire skill. I said that wrong. You hire character and you train skill. But if you don't have those correct pieces in place, like having that training, you're going to get people, you're going to lose them just as quickly as you get them. So it's great to attract the talent, but you want to be able to retain them. And so I agree with him on that, because a lot of times we put expectations on our employees and we don't back them up by supporting them or providing the resources that they need to flourish.
Right. And so to expand on that a little bit, how much do ongoing opportunities for them to advance in organizations, how much does that play a role in impact? And does Amazon do a lot of stuff with that? And what do you see, Brittany?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. That's actually a huge one right now. So Amazon has a fantastic engagement tracking system we call Connections, where we're gathering feedback from associates constantly, like daily. And it's aggregated in very digestible ways. It makes it actionable for us to go and address some of these things. And promotion opportunity is consistently something that we hear from our associates. I think traditionally, old Amazon, the hiring processes were more like, we need you in this role. We don't expect you to stay terribly long. Like, just come in and do this. But like, new Amazon is much better than that. We have an approach of like, we value every single person. We value the skills that you can bring to the table, and we want to promote within. We have since built programs to develop folks within to move from tier 1 roles to what we call tier 3 roles, which are kind of the entry level leadership. So there's lots of different opportunities there. But beyond those, that's your doorway into the salaried level leadership and up and beyond from there. So Amazon is hiring. I'm sure just from a big picture national perspective, y'all have recognized like Amazon is hiring like crazy, hiring everyone. And it's one of those things that oh my gosh, I completely lost my train of thought. But
it happens.
All right, we can go to Brittany.
Well, sure. Why don't you jump in, and then I'm sure it'll hit me in a moment.
You're hiring lots of people. I think that's where.
Yeah,
where you left
Oh,
off.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So as it relates to promotion, we are making it very clear to folks that there is a promotional opportunity for them. We put it in front of them and communicate in multiple different ways. Make it clear that that opportunity is there. We even hold classes, skill development classes, resume building classes. We're doing everything we can at more or less the entry level to that to get people in that pipeline, because we recognize there's more or less not enough people in this world to staff Amazon if we're just constantly trying to bring in from the outside. We need to develop talent from within.
Yeah, so Brittany, on that, right, you've got leadership training, those kind of things. A lot of times what we found with our smaller businesses and ones that are growing and they start to grow from 5 or 10 employees up to 50 employees, what they don't offer is that management. So they promote, but the management training portion isn't there, So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, and if there are ways, is it hiring a consultant to come in and help them with that, with the management training? Because a person who's an accountant and they move up to a manager position, they know how to account, they don't know how to manage people, right? It's a different, skill set.
And I do, before answering that question, I do just want to say that there are more ways than offering succession. Everyone doesn't want to grow into a leadership position. There are other ways that you can promote development within the company. You can move them into more of a specialized role where it may be a lateral move. Everyone doesn't necessarily want to go up the ladder. But to answer your question, let's say you have an accountant that goes to a management role. Everyone that's in a management role isn't necessarily a leader. A manager will look at processes, but a leader is someone that actually develops. And so just because someone's been with the organization for 10 years does not necessarily mean that they are going to be the best person to oversee your team. So you do want to be very, very what's the word I want to use? Intentional. You want to be very wise about those individuals, but also think about where your organization is going. Who can you groom? Who possesses the qualities, the values that your organization they really get behind that and they're consistent with that. How can you groom them? As a smaller business, you may not necessarily have a HR team or a dedicated HR person, but there are so many different organizations that you can use. You can have consultants like myself come in. You can go to different organizations that provides training and develop it. You want to make sure that you equip your employees regardless of whichever role they're in before you put them in that position. It will be far better to go without about having that role than putting the wrong person there.
For sure. So now to actually acquire talent and find talent, again, that's one of the big challenges people seem to have. Are there creative things that some small businesses or medium-sized businesses can do? You know, again, a lot of small businesses can't offer health insurance, right? Because it's too expensive. I've heard some companies now, they offer as a benefit, they offer pet insurance. Because, you know, younger generation, they're not really ready to take on health insurance because like we're going to live forever, but we want our pet to be, you know, are there creative things that companies that you're seeing that can do? Or I don't know if Amazon's doing super creative things, but, you know.
Definitely. I think that's a great point. And I just lost my dog recently, so it kind of hit us a tough spot for me. But aside from that, definitely smaller businesses are not always able to provide benefits such as the Amazon or other larger organizations. So you may not be in a position where you can offer health insurance or 401k, but you can be creative. You can think of some non-traditional things. If you think along the lines of what type of organization you have, what are some of the benefits that you can provide to them, or some of the perks that you can give them that makes them say, you know what, they really value me. And I'll just use this as an example. So let's say you have a organization that's very manual. You may want to offer gym passes. You may want to offer quarterly massages. It sounds non-traditional, but it's something that's giving back to your team to say, hey, like I may not be able to give you this 401k, but I do want you to have peace of mind. I do want to feel like you can decompress. One of the other things that I do like to suggest to my clients when I work with them, when you're onboarding them and you're wanting to get to know about them, you're building that relationship, find out what they like. Just like Drew said earlier, they're going to tell you what you like. Everyone doesn't want a McDonald's gift card. Maybe they want a gas card. You know, you just ask them what they want, and then you can create your own type of, like, more like of a customizable package for them that makes them feel like, you know what, Brittany actually cares about what's important to me. Doesn't have to be the greatest package.
Yeah, I've heard one company offering I think it's Jones Insurance here, that they'll offer for their employees like a free shopper, like that goes and shops during the day because they don't have time to do it, right? Like that's a big benefit for people that don't have time, and time is, you know, one of the resources that we, you know, is limited, and so that actually is a big benefit for them working there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on top of everything you just said, like just little things, like considering that like remote work, is that possible? Different working hours that are non-traditional for whatever the business is. Like you really got to think about those things and kind of stop and say like, oh, we've been doing it this way, but like we really have to do it this way? Is there a different way? Is it a better way? Like what's the impact? So think of it in that sense. Kind of, it's maybe a slightly different answer to the question, but just maybe taking a different angle on this. Like something that I think small businesses should really take a hard look at is their hiring processes, in the sense of like hiring processes are an advertisement for your company, like whether you like it or not. So as applicants get on to apply for whatever job in your company, they're taking note of what they're seeing, right? So if you're old school and still got paper applications and file cabinets, like people in 2020 recognize like, wow, this company looks way behind from where we're at. So really take a hard look at your hiring processes. If you don't have a PeopleSoft system to track your applicant flow and all that, I would highly recommend doing that. And majority of applications these days come online. They come from people browsing on their computers, and they want a streamlined process that doesn't take all day to fill out a single application, and they want it to be a good representation of the company, because if you get halfway through an application and it's clunky and cumbersome and it takes forever and you're not even all that impressed with the company anyways, you may just stop your application and move on to the next thing. So really take a good look at that process to help your business out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just want to jump in and just kind of piggyback off of that. You said something very important. They are taking note. So just like we're interviewing the next candidate, they're interviewing us. Why do I want to work for this company? Do I feel like I can see myself being a part of this culture? How does this hiring person make me feel? I try to make sure, especially when I'm actively recruiting for my clients, I want to make sure that they have a consistent process from start to finish. So you just want to make sure that everyone on your team has the same mindset, that they're willing to create a seamless process. Like you said, if it's clunky, it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm not going through this process.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have applied for jobs recently, but it is a very time-consuming process. And from an applicant perspective, you want it to be quicker, right? So it's not just about volume for them, but it's about ease of use. And like, it can be a big turnoff if you go through a process and you're like, I have already put my job information in here 3 times. Like, and they're asking for it again. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's the type of stuff you really got to look at.
So LinkedIn, how important is LinkedIn and social media when candidates are applying and when you all evaluate?
Well, I can say that I'm a people person. I'm a relationship-based person. So I definitely think that any type of network that you can use that will allow you to cultivate a relationship, get to know more about someone is very important. You do want to be careful in how you use the process, but it isn't always what you know, it's who you know. So that's why it's very important no matter where you go, even if you've worked in an organization where it wasn't as pleasurable as you would have liked, always make sure that you maintain those good relationships. So when you're on a LinkedIn, when you're on a Lineable or whatever other social media network, you can use that to leverage, but your name and your reputation will follow you. So what you put out there, you got to be careful about it.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I would say from my perspective, when we're hiring, the volume that I've been talking about, our tier 1 roles, the LinkedIn stuff, we're not too worried about that. But when we're talking about hiring, salaried level leadership in our company, we, it's that information's out there. So I guess at the end of the day, like anything you put out on social media is something that you need to be, aware that a future employer could see this, and whether you know it or not, like they may be using that to make a decision regarding your employment. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I think that's the reality.
Yeah. So what's normal as we move forward, right? Are we looking at, the employers really have to step up? Like, is that what we're looking at? And the employers have to make sure that they're providing what employees need to retain the top talent. Is that?
Yeah. So that's my take. Is, as I mentioned earlier, I believe the culture has changed. Like, and you had mentioned earlier about like employer versus employee driven, like comp and ben package, like. It's always been kind of on the employer favor, and I think it still is, but like it's kind of an old adage, and it's maybe not totally fitting, but like you get what you pay for to some extent, right? So like if you're offering as a business, benchmarking with your competitors, if you're towards the bottom, like you got to recognize your competitors are probably taking the top talent because they got these things that are attracting them. So. Employees have spoken. Like we know, and prospective employees have spoken. Like we know what they want, and as employers, we need to react to that. We need to adjust to that, because if we don't, we won't be getting the talent we need. Like I don't believe that people are going to just one day wake up and be like, you know what, this remote work stuff, it's been great for 2 years, but like I changed my mind, I'll go back to the office. Like the type of person that's into that is going to be into that. It's not changing.
Yeah, Brittany, do you have any?
So I definitely agree with all of that. You cannot have a champagne taste on a beer budget. You do want to make sure, it is what it is, right? You do want to make sure that as the employer, while you do have the favor, you get to determine what you're going to offer, but it would be very unwise to not take into consideration, again, of what your team is looking for. Ultimately, when you're hiring someone, your goal is to keep them as long as you can. Of course, some people are going to grow, they're going to move on, and that's great, but you don't want to get into this cycle of the churn and burn. So how can I make my environment, this atmosphere, one that people really enjoy coming to every day? What can I do to make sure that I'm retaining my talent? And so you do need to want to make sure that you are looking into what your employees want.
Yeah, so with the last question I'll kind of ask is, and if somebody wants to ask a question, we'll have a time for a couple questions. So, but sometimes a small business, or even us at the chamber, you've got a small team, and if you lose somebody, then you're kind of in a scramble, right? Like to hire somebody pretty quickly. How do you suggest? I know probably the answer is take your time as much as you can, but sometimes that's not an option. You just need to hire somebody. Are there ways that you can screen a little better to get some talent that you would actually fit? Are there faster ways to kind of get to that person versus a 2-month kind of interview process?
So that is a great question. Sometimes you're just going to lose people for various reasons. Sometimes you have to let them go. Sometimes they move on. Sometimes people die, unfortunately. One thing that I will say is you always want to be looking for your next person. Not like, I'm trying to get you out of there, Kelly. But for one, as I mentioned earlier, everyone does not want to move up. So when you see someone exhibiting qualities that might be beneficial in another position, see how you can begin to cultivate and teach them some other things, and so that might allow them to be able to shift into that if needed. Brain fart. Your turn.
No, that's fine. I'll take it. I'll run
that
with
wasn't
it.
on. That wasn't on the questions I sent you. So sorry.
I just had a mom brain.
Oh gosh, now we got talking about that. Now I've spaced
What was
out
the question?
Too.
Anybody?
Okay, so replacing people.
Yeah, okay,
right?
I apologize.
No, I
Now,
think
all
it's
right, now I'm
hiring
back.
in a time crunch. I think when you've got so much going on, you have limited staff anyway. If you lose somebody, it's a small business. You're like, what do I do for the next 2 months? Because I can't spend that much time hiring somebody new.
Yeah, I think
So we got to get stuff done. Like you said, productivity is key, right?
So I think a couple options, like if you have the budget flexibility, in my opinion, it's always wise to carry a little bit more headcount than you think you really truly need. So when unexpected things happen, you're not completely in a bind. But that's not always practical, right? Now, when it comes to immediate staffing needs, depending on the role, you could get a staffing company involved, and they generally have people kind of on a bench that they can kind of just move right in. Or you could, as an employer, take a similar approach and proactively interview and select candidates and let them know on the front end, like I don't necessarily have a vacancy now, but I may in the next 2 to 3 months, and just be a little more proactive with it. That's not always going to be a perfect fit. It may not always work out, but in your example, it's you're kind of just stuck, right? So what are my options? And
right.
May not be a bunch of good ones, but there are some options out there.
Yeah, just curious.
Thank you for reminding me what I was going to say. So never underestimate the power of one-on-ones, okay? Regardless of how small or how large your organization is, never underestimate the power of one-on-ones. Make sure that you're intentional about spending time getting to know your employees, finding out what's working well for them, what's not working well, because most often than not, if you just take that 10 minutes every couple weeks, once a month, whenever you're able to do that, you can kind of pick up on some of those flags. Okay, this person is struggling. Is there an issue at home? Are we giving them too much work? And then you can kind of work through those things and maybe alleviate or minimize some of that burnout or some of those reasons why people will up and leave. And
communication is always good, right? Yeah.
But sometimes we get so caught up in doing the work, right, that we forget to actually check on people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And to your point, sometimes you can kind of see these things coming and try and get prepared a little bit, even if it's not been formally put out there that I am going to resign, but you can start to see the writing on the wall.
Okay. Awesome. So do we have any questions from the crowd? Anybody? Yes.
You're referencing our career choice program, I believe. Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to answer. So one of the things we're doing at the Chamber is trying to offer programs. I know you've been to some of the Mastermind Lab stuff, right? And so the reason I want to plug that is because it's not just the principals at the companies who are Chamber members that can come to these. It's any employee of any Chamber member that can attend these Mastermind Labs to help with some of this, training and learning and all these educational opportunities. But any Chamber member and their employees can also attend that. But I'll turn it over to you guys.
No, I think you answered it very well. I mean, I was actually going to kind of lean toward, it seems like the Chamber is actually a really good option for that. In my past, I've seen partnerships with local schools. So, for example, back when I was in manufacturing, at one point we were in like dire need of welders, specifically at the facility I was at, and it was just very, very difficult to find. So we partnered with a local school, a local tech school, and kind of had a two-prong approach of partnering with them to basically provide the talent pool for us for these roles, but also we were able to utilize their facilities to cross-train some of the maintenance mechanics we had on site in that skill. So, that's a very specific example, but I would definitely, if I was in that position again, I would certainly consider looking at my local schools and tech schools, or maybe it's like an ITT tech's a bad example, but a tech school, like a computer tech school, to try and figure out like what they may be able to offer me.
And Wake Tech offers tons of resources as
Tech,
well. So I know Christopher Weeks will be here later on to talk about some of the things they're doing with, we'll launch Garner, and that's another program, obviously. But I think there's a lot of resources. And one of the things we're trying to do is put a database together of those things so we can get it out to our members so they know what's available. Brittany,
and the only thing that I will add to that, especially for an organization that's smaller, your resources may not be as limitless. Let's say you can incorporate this as a part of your benefits. Let's say you've been with the company for more than 6 months, you take a course, we reimburse you. I was recruiting for a daycare center not too long ago. There are a lot of requirements that they have to stay up to date on their certifications. And so that was one of the things that I was able to recommend. You may not be able to offer health insurance. You may not be able to offer retirement package, but in order for you to maintain that 5-star rating, you need them to have those proper accreditations. So why not reward them by continuing with their education? It's benefiting you, it's benefiting them in the long run. You're putting money back in their pocket, and they're more willing to stay loyal to you because they know that you're helping them further in their continuing education.
Awesome. Any other questions? If not, we'll want to thank both of you for joining us. Awesome information. You guys are the experts. So, is there another? Yeah, please, go ahead.
You'll need to turn that mic on, push the button to the left, please.
Yeah, you can just talk. Yeah, we can hear you, and we can. So the question was about burnout. How do you address burnout?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I imagine that the hospital system has probably faced the worst of that out of most industry. So Amazon, we have combat that as well. Honestly, I don't have a great answer for you. I would say something we focus on a lot with employees, speaking of one-to-ones is a great example, like just in my own team, just from personal experience, like burnout has come up, and then questions come up about, all right, so like what can we do from a work flexibility standpoint to to support you? So like what is causing your burnout? Is it issues with home? Is it issues with work? Is it issues with something else, personal life? Like, so let's figure out like what the root cause is first, and like let's talk through what may be beneficial for you specifically to try and support you, right? So and that's tough, right? Because you have to have some level of consistency with how you're addressing this. But you also want to have that personal touch too, because there's not a one-size-fits-all for this particular issue. So where your company can implement things that are more flexible, that generally will help in the burnout arena.
Brittany, any thoughts?
Well, definitely. First of all, thank you for your service. Working in the medical, I tip my hat off to anyone that does that, and even in hospitality. I would definitely say, especially with the hospital, there's a lot of funding with that. Partnering with employment assistance programs. They typically have those EOP programs. You have counseling. I'm sure you guys probably have that through Amazon, so you have options for that. Again, I can't stress enough, I'm sure with nurses, CNAs, even the food service workers, they're constantly on their feet dealing with so many types of emotions. 10-minute massages, partner with, see if you can get them to do that. Strike a deal with some of these larger organizations. What can we do to give you 10 minutes of peace? And you can do that on any level. A massage isn't going to fix everything. It makes me feel good. But whatever is unique to your organization, that's going to make them get what they need, and they're still able to come to work and still show up and do what they need to.
Actually, one of our members that we're talking to right now, they are looking at doing more of corporate wellness, kind of to address some of that, where they come in and they would kind of do things like that to help, kind of people with burnout and different things they're dealing with, physical stuff as well.
And just one other thing that came to mind as well is it's not always possible, but this came up recently in Amazon, where we basically identified a few of our specific positions that just simply were working too much. And we had to step back and say, like, do we have enough people? Like, no, we don't. Like, we really need more people, right? So if people are working 10, 12 hours a day, every day, 6 or 7 days a week, obviously that's not going to, like, you can't sustain that. People won't. So identifying ways to bring in more talent to kind of offset the burden on others is certainly a good approach.
And I will just also add to that, to also, again, just take, maybe not necessarily in your case, but just as a whole, taking a look at that job description. Does this job description really reflect what I said it was? Is there a need to separate this into two roles? Are they burned out because maybe the process is too complex? Can we make this more efficient? This may be the way that we're doing it today, but is it really the best way? And I feel like a lot of times that's why people are burnt out. They're expected to do more, or we're changing this new process. Yes, we love innovation. We love growing, with evolution, but are we changing our processes too fast? Did they get a chance to grasp it the last time? Are we training them in the areas that we're expecting them and holding them accountable to?
changing is exhausting. Like it really is. So we've launched tons of stuff at the chamber last year. We're like, all right, we got to make sure that we kind of take a little break here. Yeah, because it does have to make sense, and people have to be, on board and not burn out. So awesome. Is there anything else? If not, do you guys have any closing comments? If not, go ahead if you have something.
No, I was just going to say thank you for having me. I appreciate the time and appreciate y'all being here, and maybe next time. Hit me up again.
For sure.
Definitely, I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed being a part of this panel. And HR is not daunting. We are just professionally human. So get connected with your HR person.
So again, thank you so much, guys.